Hey, how you doing? Today I wanted to talk about voluntarism and obedience. What do I think about this? How am I standing in stark contrast against most of the influencers that I've been around, most of the influencers that would have heard of me, or anybody sort of tangentially related to my content? How do I stand apart in this category? Well, I do espouse voluntarism, and people have a very hard time with that. So voluntarism is this idea, and I'll give you a definition. It's not like the best working definition, but it's the principle of relying on voluntary action, used especially with reference to the involvement of voluntary organizations in social welfare. That's like not the best, but voluntarism is this idea that human relationships are predicated upon your willingness to be involved, and so with that as your observance, then this idea of all adult relationships being voluntary comes out of that. And also this idea of that there are no unchosen positive obligations. And that's a big one. And I think that's an important one. I have sort of held off on these topics because I just haven't felt the energy to cover them in a way that I'm satisfied with. That's actually why I stopped writing. I haven't written much in the way of books in a while. I did manage to produce one this year based on some writings from last year, but writing's really taken a backseat in my life as I've just focused on my health. But I feel my health coming back, and so I just want to, early on in this YouTube adventure, I don't know, we'll see how long it lasts. I think I'm going to put the Rumble link down below. I would really like it if you're here and you're not with me on Rumble. I'd appreciate it if you clicked right now on that link and headed on over to Rumble in another tab, and you hit subscribe so that you are synced up with me in case whatever. I've decided to just speak with very little filter here on YouTube. I have been more tentative and pensive about the whole thing, but I've decided, I'm just gonna swing for the fences. You only get one life. Hey, I did it before. I swung for the fences before I lost the YouTube, and that was tough. Lost some income stream off of that, but I'm going to go for it again anyway, and we'll see what we get into. I think I have a different standpoint from last time I was on YouTube. So this is one of those things, voluntarism and obedience. Obedience would be, I think I have a really great working definition of obedience. Obedience is a form of social influence where an individual acts according to the orders of instructions of an authority figure. It involves yielding to explicit commands, often leading to actions that a person might not have taken independently. To circle back around to what I was saying just a second ago, this idea of that there are no positive obligations in this life. No one can induce you. In voluntarism, no one has a right or an authority to coerce you, to break the non-aggression principle in order to get you to participate in something. Nobody has the right to do that. And so if we're thinking about, I think probably the most expedient example that comes to mind is this arrangement between man and woman, marriage. And this idea of obedience that people have, I don't know where they get it from. Where do they get this idea of obedience in a marriage? This idea that a woman needs to obey the man. Oh boy, this is getting spicy. I can feel people's defenses coming out. There is this sort of assumption that a woman must obey a man. But if there are no positive obligations in this life, then you have to kind of look at the vows, right? You have to look into what people contracted with one another. And if it's in there that the man obeys, that the woman obeys the man, then that's interesting. I still don't think it's necessary. I still don't think it's needed. And that's not what I am about. But at least there it's contracted. So, but people just sort of pull this. It's funny how people work. People pull this obligation on the part of a woman to obey the man. They just pull it from wherever, like they just decide, well, it's been written, and so therefore that means that you have to do it. And the tricky part with that is that women can quit on that. They can go, we don't want to do that. And that's often what happens. And I think that's perhaps a lot of what feminism is. So when we obligate one another, when we command one another, when we create these obligations and suddenly we're ordering people around, it does tend to, and with the expectation of obedience, it does tend to create a lot of backlash because it's not an argument. And so, this is something that was pretty hot like 3 or 4 years ago. What's a trad marriage? What's the trad arrangement? Well, the woman has to just cede to the man's authority. Why? Because he has it. Why? Don't ask that question. Do you want to get hit? You want to get hit in the mouth? That's what it just boils down to violence. Ask enough questions and watch the violence enter the room. That seems to be the story of my life. Every time I get more free, there's like a new set of prison bars that I'm like, why are these here? And they're like, shut up. The world's like, shut up. Don't ask that question. So, there was this really intense drive at like getting women to obey men. And that's been a thing for like 3 or 4 years. And I really don't think it's an argument. So I just think it has no bearing in philosophy. Like if you want to do philosophy, if you want to just live by the argument and you live by rationality, then you can't just go with obedience. You can't just go with, because eventually it's because the man can kill the woman. If all the men in the world banded together to kill all the women, and if all the women in the world banded together to try to kill the men, the men would just be physically superior and they would destroy the women. So therefore, you should obey men. That's still not an argument. I've seen it. It's what is it called? It's some sort of like survival theory. Something that sounds really, what a cool argument, But at the end of the day, it's like, we'll just club you over the head if you don't do what we want you to do. And that's just not an argument. That's just coercion or a threat. And so I really don't think it's the way that people should run their marriages. And I think anyone with half a brain, I think, could probably suss that out from my attitude and disposition over the years. But I just want to come out and say these things. I want to say more about my point of view. I'm inviting more controversy, I guess. Although I think to a lot of people it's not a surprise. But, bring your arguments, I guess. Let's see what, let's see if people can make an argument not from authority as to why you should obey. That would be interesting. So, but at the end of the day, it's like the person with the big stick makes the rules. And I really don't think that is that has been the social arrangement forever. And it's been pretty disastrous. It's just resulted in this intergenerational theft forever. It's resulted in this predatory class using language and violence to kind of keep a lot of peasants in line. It's just a very miserable situation with a lot of violence and a lot of low morality. That's been the way of the world since mankind's foundation, whenever that was. 2,000 years, 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 800,000. How long have we been around? I don't know. I haven't looked too closely into that, but it's been a long time. Maybe they say the agricultural revolution was 10,000 years ago. So let's just say since then. I don't think it's the way that society ought to be arranged. I think it is the way that society is arranged. And so when you speak out against this arrangement, you look like a kook, or you look like an outsider, or you get denigrated because you don't want to contribute to the manipulation, the manipulative ends of those that are in power. So of course they're going to malign you. They're going to call you this and that. And that's just more information, right? It's just like, okay. So I'm making an argument that there is no there is no contract that we agree to automatically because we're born, some social contract or something. There's no contract we automatically agree to by drawing breath. Therefore, we don't have positive obligations. That's a basis of an argument that I'm making. And so what the response is like heckling or an argument from authority or an argument from precedent. Well, this is just the way it's been. That makes no sense to me. And maybe someone has something a bit better than that, but I've never really seen anything better than that. This is the best that I've seen. And these are the positions I can most consistently argue and have been able to for years. And I don't really see any cogent rebuttals. And that's very interesting information as well. Okay, so in the marriage, what does this look like? Because people are like, this is retarded. You want emotional communism. You're not recognizing there's differences between men and women. Men are good at bonking heads, okay? And women are good in the kitchen. There's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of outrage, right? How dare you say that I can't order my wife around? It goes on and on. But the way it works is just through the argument. It's through an appeal. And the argument is a common currency. You can make a great argument. A woman can make a great argument. I've not seen a lot of that, but that's just my experience. I've seen some of that societally broadly. Okay, I've not seen a lot of that. I've not seen a lot of female philosophers. It does tend to be a 90 to 95% male-dominated field. But men advance good arguments. They share them with the rest of us. And then we chew these things through, and then if they're rational, they bring us more happiness in our lives, and that includes the women in our lives. And so in this way, maybe more so secondhand, you get a woman that'll give a good argument. It's something that she heard and she can rationally defend, or she can reasonably explain it, and we can look at that and go, this makes sense. That's the way to run a marriage. And so then instead of this whole thing of this never-ending like emergency ethics, right? Because men have martial killing power. That is your day-to-day life. And everything is a lifeboat scenario every single day. And so, because I could see maybe like in some edge case or something, like intruders are coming in the home and the man is like, get down. And the woman's like, no, you make an argument for why I should get down. Boom, her head gets blown off by the home invaders. Some edge case I could see like that. But this isn't, we don't live in constant tribal warfare of hunter-gatherers, in the times where they'd run out of space, right? It was a cyclical thing. They'd run out of space and then they'll war on each other. And then with enough deaths, there'd be more land and territory again. I don't think we're quite there. And so this justification that like for this domestic arrangement, I laugh a lot because people's assertion at this point to me that they need to like order their wives around it just doesn't make any sense to me. It breeds so much resentment, and it favors you having a dumb wife, right? say that with a special zest. Yeah, you find someone that you can order around. I mean, they're probably pretty cowed. And this thing is at least somewhat heritable, right? This intelligence that she has. So you're looking for some pushover that you can order around, rather than a woman with a European soul, right? Like a sense of nobility. And the people are like, oh no, that doesn't exist. And then people who slam on me for that and say that doesn't exist, they turn around and pray to the Virgin Mary. And I wonder what that's about. But you're looking for someone who's well-heeled, someone who's intelligent, insightful, and this does happen with women. And then you can make an appeal, and then you get along fantastically because she's self-regulating. And people say that's not possible. Women are not self-regulating. They're always, because there's a few internet memes, because there's this one interaction on Reddit, that means that women are always referring to themselves relative to a man, as like that's the only backing they have for that claim. And so out gets tossed this idea that a woman could be self-regulating, or that women, if they learn enough philosophy, they become a lot more self-regulating. That gets totally tossed out the window because somebody has some like Reddit moment. And it's crazy that right-wingers will be like, gotcha, because of this. Look at this on Reddit. her frame of reference was relative to the man and not to her own life. Look at that. And so that's like ultimate proof, but they're just pointing at like NPC psychology, right? But that's a lot of what I come up against, is because people don't really have any self-knowledge. They just have a bunch of like mandates and dictates that they follow, and they know these like in a cunning way or whatever. And so that's supposed to be a replacement for self-knowledge or something. So we have voluntarism. The other thing too is we have voluntarism in our personal lives, the way we work with each other. If someone's voluntarily in our lives, like our friends, how do we work with those people? Do we do a bunch of like obey and commandments and stuff like this? No. And is it a friendship definitionally if you're doing that? No, it's not. It is a master-slave relationship. It's a relationship for your gain or their gain, depending on who is the aggressive one. It's not a relationship of mutual enjoyment and learning. That tends to be what a friendship is. So I've never really encountered like good rebuttals to any of this stuff. People will try, well, have you heard of, and then, have you heard this? The really clever ones will be like, have you heard of this esoteric book? Yeah. Oh, you haven't read it? And then they want to try to embarrass me publicly. Like, look, everyone else, he has not read this book. So how could he say he really is a philosopher? It's this whole thing. But I can just make the arguments, right? Make arguments for voluntarism in your personal life, voluntarism in your marriage. It works wonderfully. I don't mean to make an argument from effect, but it does work wonderfully to just make an argument to your wife. Go, this is what I think. As a sober, rational man, this is what I think. I'm gonna say this is my conclusion, or this is my best working theory. What do you think? And then see the woman sort of work that through, to be treated that way, right? Because not only we tend to think that the right wing is like all authoritarian or something. We've been led to believe this. It tends to be actually much more so the case that the left is a lot more authoritarian. And if you just look at raw results, like, okay, Franco killed like 150 people or whatever. Mao Zedong killed 80 million, it's a total disparity. Hitler maybe killed 8 to 12 million, depending on who you ask. Stalin killed 30 to 40 million. George W. Bush killed 1 million Iraqis. Churchill killed 800,000 Indians in like a month. I forget what it is anyway. It's some absurd number. So, it really does tend to be that the left, or, people that are like the side that's much more willing to just stick their butts up in the air for whatever banker is like passing by. That tends to be the left. They tend to be more authoritarian. They tend to be more obedient to whole-scale class genocide, whereas right-wingers are like, they're more testy, they're more disagreeable, and they're more sort of entrepreneurial, like productive enterprise-oriented, capitalism-oriented, some people would say. And so, a woman can get a lot of programming from the left and makes her rather obedient. And she's just rather obedient. And this is the other thing. People always are pointing to social media like it's proof of concept, right? It's proof of not having to care about philosophy. The point, and they say, well, look, see, women, they're just big-time conformists. It'll be some woman on the street interview. Man will go around, hey, do you think it's okay to be racist? And then the woman will be like, well, I don't know. And then her friend will be like, no, it's not okay. It's not okay. And she'll coach her friend into conformity, right? And so conformity to social expectations, conformity to social norms. Women do tend to be a little bit more programmed with this because they had to get along in groups and sit around and like forage and tend to children in groups while the men went out and hunted and got what they needed to get. But it doesn't mean that a woman can't be relieved of that pressure or can't deprogram herself to a good extent from that tendency. And that's perfectly possible, perfectly possible with philosophy. But people just don't want to grant that. People want to say, people have this mulish stubbornness about how things are. They say, oh, because things are this way in the social matrix, it means you can't have ideals. And you just have to be a cunning will to power operator within the social matrix, the way things are in this effed up fiat, welfare, broken dating market, world. Like you have to just be cynical, and you just have to operate as a self-interested mammal in this rule set. And so they can never point to ideals because they've never really worked through ideals. They've never reformed themselves with self-knowledge, philosophy, any of that good stuff. And so they can't understand that there would be a different arrangement. They can't understand that some sort of different ideal would come to fruition. And I think that's a huge stumbling block for most people that I've bumped into that just have a bad reaction to philosophy and have a bad reaction to my content. And I think it's worth working through that. I don't think it's worth just staying stuck on that, or getting like nitpicking me, right? Getting upset at the messenger, going, oh, this is wrong with him, that's wrong with him. Oh, you made a mistake here. When you don't actually have an argument, you're doing like non-arguments to push away the discomfort that I'm provoking. I think that's just immature, really immature behavior. So voluntarism in marriages works because voluntarism works. It doesn't have to be in a marriage. It could be in a friendship. Most of your friendships are conducted on the basis of voluntarism. Definitionally, they are. I mean, there's just nobody, you're ordering somebody around. That's not your friend. That's your lackey. That's your lackey. That's your sycophant. And maybe you think that's like charming or something, but it's pretty well lost on me at this point. I'm not interested in that. So, a bit more on like how voluntarism works in a marriage. I mean, can you back up your claims? Like if you claim that something should be this way in the home or whatever, can you back that up with a good argument? And so many people, they have this short circuit. They bump into ideas of freedom or ideas of philosophy, honesty in relationships, the exchange of feedback without conclusions. They bump into this stuff, and then they just kind of wig out with aggression. And that's what we live in. It's a pretty barbaric, just annoying. It's taxing and it's tedious to try to have to continue to listen to people that just can't process arguments. And at some level, I am very much willing to do that because I want to reach as many people as possible. But there is this assumption that comes from these people that they're right, because might makes right, and it's just like basic like caveman club. And there's also this crazy projection on me that I've never considered might is right. I haven't read Ragnar Redbeard's book on might is right. I've not read any Nietzsche. I've never looked at the might is right ethos and thought it through a whole bunch. There's always this projection, and it's just like an admission of guilt that they've never really thought through voluntarism. And also people go, well, hard times call for hard men. I was writing about this in my Sea of Negativity article that I just put up on Substack. Hard times call for hard men, so that means we have to just be like salty assholes. And that means we don't have to understand voluntarism anymore. And because force is inevitable, therefore voluntarism doesn't work at all, ever, and it never will, and it can't help us out of the predicament that we're in. Why? Because I'm angry, because I have a chip on my shoulder, because I'm traumatized from this or that, because I'm overloaded on, I'm a dopamine junkie, and I'm overloaded on internet sarcasm and cynicism. That's why. And people like this, they're very presumptive, and they really get in the way of these ideas being able to spread. And I think that's maybe a part of why I'm kind of interested in, or I feel more game to talk about these topics now. So I have more energy. I have more energy to take a stand for these ideas, and hopefully get them over to you. And maybe from listening to this, you get a good way of dealing dealing with objections, right? These people, they all over, and it's like influence everywhere. It's the age of rage, because the younger generations have been totally dispossessed legally. Then people aren't satisfied to just get to better financial instruments like superior asset classes and just sort of pop the hypocrisy bubbles of the people who did the legal dispossession. There's this whole idea of like, no, we gotta go for broke. We gotta go even more for broke than they are, and we've got to burn up everything in order to retaliate for their wrongs. And I don't think that's really going to work, actually. I think what's going to work is voluntarism and social ostracism and peaceful parenting and Bitcoin. I think these things are going to work, and they already do work. But I think they need more people championing them, because in the social matrix, not in reality, in the social matrix, when enough people are bleeding the same message, might is right, bleeding this, the more it becomes a kind of reality to those people. And it's very hard to shake people like this out of their stupor, out of their self-certain rage. And so, I'm not necessarily looking to do that, but these are the people that are the loudest and raise the loudest objections. So I think that's where I want to leave it. I could probably talk more about voluntarism in a marriage, but look, man, it's pretty simple. Like you're that on an at-will basis, and hopefully you're sticking to your vows. You made your vows, and that's a contract. And generally, the best way to work out that contract is just to stick by it, but also to stay accountable to the argument. Whoever makes the killer argument makes the killer argument, and there's no skin off anybody's back if it's the woman who does it. Now and then that'll happen. Hopefully you married an intelligent woman. Hopefully you married a woman that wasn't just cowed by your aggression. And hopefully you got that out before you got married, because what you get is what you get. So if you become more noble, more refined, more mature, and then you're married to a woman who's cowed by you, that maybe you broke her down, or maybe she probably came to you broken down by her father. And maybe she came to you broken down from a spotty past. But likely she got broken down by her family, and then you've broken her down additionally, and then you wake up to voluntarism. You wake up to the argument. You wake up to being a gentleman and a person of some poise and repose. A nice two-word combo right there. But then this woman's all cowed. Are you going to be able to get her out of that? Maybe you picked a woman that's kind of dumb, or maybe you picked a woman that would have been smart, but she's brain damaged because she did drugs or because she was on psych meds or something like this. And then you were just able to have your way, right? You picked out of a sense of a power disparity because you wanted to have your way. Well, having your way gets old. Having your way gets very tired, and hopefully she's got some brain cells to rub together at the end of that, so that you can make some arguments to her, so you guys can get a lot happier. I don't know. So I talk about it's a lot of stuff behind the paywall where I've talked about how to choose a woman properly. I just made a video called "They Broke Her, You Bought Her." I can make a video called "They Broke Her, You Fix Her." But people put themselves in these nasty arrangements because they have blackened souls. And because they believe in the necessity of violence, and they're addicted to violence. And look, violence doesn't mean necessarily going around slapping around your wife or like yelling at her every time you lose your cool. It could just be like being a smooth operator and just pushing her this way and that way, just manipulating her this way and that way, which is really sad and pathetic. If you can't make an argument, it's rather pathetic. It's a pathetic way to treat another person. But a lot of guys do this, and they move their woman this way and that. And then they're like, why am I so miserable? And because their capacity for universals is going down. They're trashing their own conscience. If you just stop and you just would self-reflect, you don't even have to journal. You may hate the word and you may hate the prospect of that, but you just stop and self-reflect and try to get in touch with your conscience. It'll tell you you've been manipulative. And violent and like manipulating someone this way, violent is not really the first word that comes to mind, but there's a nasty spirit in a man, and it could be a woman, right? I could pick on women, right? But I basically do that a lot. And so I do want to talk about the trespasses of men. Some it's a risk I run because everything is so anti-feminist, and so if you say anything that is like, well, let's have a consideration for the soul and nobility, the individuality of the woman, And it would be nice to regard her with some arguments and some empathy. I run the risk of, a lot of the, but it's like, if you turn off by this, well, go take a hike, go get lost, buddy, and go find yourself and then come back. I'm being so nice. I can't even say mean things anymore. I'm like the nicest man on the internet. I'm pretty damn happy. Top percentile of happiness on the planet. Anyway, if you don't receive that well, you can't live with the idea that maybe you would like be something other than a douche, a douche in your marriage. Well, no, but I get to be a douche. I'm entitled. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Just think it through. Think through all this resentment that you're sowing by being this way. Then, well, it's then you get a chance to change. If you reflect on that, you really feel it. You feel how you've taken somebody else's thinking options away by your own incessant need to impress upon them the importance of obedience to you. In every action, you've got to show your isn't there some sort of grandiosity, right? Because you're putting on a show. You're putting on a show that there's a necessity to obey you because you're an authority. Why? Because you can punch her lights out when the rubber hits the road. Like there's a real pomposity in that, and it is actually quite a relief, especially because when you get into your 40s and 50s, and I'm right there. I'm knocking on the doorstep. When you get in your 60s, your conscience is loud, and it is right there with you. And these things you thought you were hot shit when you were doing this stuff, or I'm high tea and all this good stuff, and you just kind of skimmed over the douchebaggery. That's going to visit you when you're old. It's going to be loud and in your face, and your ability to take out the damage, to reduce the damage, to give restitution and clean that up, much reduced. The time to get it right is in your 20s and your 30s, and lead with the argument. And then, other than like the semi-odd like lifeboat scenario, like some blacks are like trying to carjack you, or you drove in the hood and the blacks are like slapping on your windshield, and and you're like, woman, get down, and she's not going to be like, we live by the argument, sweet. The mammal instincts will kick in. So, but I think people they think they have this strong staying power in their arguments because they can point to, there are some mammalian instincts that tell us like when the heat gets hot, the man is ready to war, and then the woman has to like hide and take care. So that's just how you should run a marriage, like because those instincts are there, it has such holding power over people. But that's all there is. There's just some holdover instincts that they serve us. And people think, well, you lead with the argument. So, Steve, are you saying a husband can't be like tenacious, can't be a go-getter, can't be aggressive with the world? Oh, you're saying a man's going to be cowed to his woman because she's not going to. It's like, don't you talk with your woman? Don't you talk before you get married? I have a whole book on this. It's called The End of Female Evil. It's all about de-escalating, deprogramming the evil that's been programmed into a woman by her parents and by society, so that these negotiations in marriage become way more expedient. And so then it isn't a kind of futile or emasculating exercise to take a second and go, here's the argument. In marriage, right? Because you've laid so much groundwork. I got to put that link down below. I'm going to leave a link to The End of Female Evil. A good companion book to that is Family Formation. I did write it as a follow-up to The End of Female Evil. But anyway, people have so many assumptions. Oh, Steve, because in your, your 35-minute video, you couldn't cover this one little loophole I found in what you said. You've never considered it before. It's like, give me a break. Give me a break. I had hundreds over like 500 videos on YouTube before. I took some of them down. I got some stuff on Rumble. I got books out, man. I got reams of books at this point, and I've been around. So I think people that try to own me, they're just trying to own me publicly to make me look foolish. And it really has nothing to do with a consideration that, yeah, I've probably thought it through. I've had a lot of time, a lot of late nights to think through things. I've thought through a lot of things in my life. So anyway, I think I'll leave it there. Pretty interesting stuff. I'd appreciate it if you click the link down below and you got a donation to me. Do that now, will you? I sure would appreciate it. I'm asking you to donate. Let's get rid of the free rider problem, and let's make it let's make it the abundant, wonderful place that I want it to be. So be sure you smash the thumbs up. Sounds like I got to get out of here anyway. Be sure you sub. If you're new around here, welcome. Some more meaty stuff for you. I'm having more and more meaty videos for you. I appreciate everyone who sat through the content reaction years. I'm coming back. It's nice. Good to see you. I'll get something to you soon. Later.